At exactly 0837 hours local time on June 25, 2026, a vessel tracking alert fired simultaneously across the screens of the U.S. Navy 5th Fleet's Combat Information Center in Manama, Bahrain, the UK Maritime Trade Operations Center in Dubai, and the bridge of a Norwegian-owned container ship making its way 7.5 nautical miles southeast of Oman's port of Dati. The Singapore-flagged Ever Lovely had just taken a direct hit. A single Iranian drone, launched from an IRGC fast boat running dark with no AIS signal, punched through the ship's starboard bridge wing at an estimated approach speed of 180 knots. The explosion tore open a section of the superstructure. No crew were killed, but every operator watching maritime picture boards from Bahrain to London understood in that moment what had just happened. The peace deal that was supposed to end 4 months of war had just been tested, and the IRGC had just failed it deliberately. This was not a random act. What unfolded over the next 11 hours in the Strait of Hormuz was the single most dangerous moment since Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28th, a precision provocation timed to coincide with the UN's largest maritime evacuation since the Second World War. Designed to fracture the fragile MOU signed 8 days earlier between Trump and Iranian President Pezeshkian at Versailles, and force the entire global order to confront a question nobody in Washington, Tehran, or Geneva has been willing to answer. Who actually controls Iran's guns? 8 days. That's how long the Memorandum of Understanding had been in force. On June 17, 2026, Trump signed it at the Palace of Versailles over dinner with Macron, following the G7 summit. It was a breakthrough the world had been waiting for since Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28th, and the IRGC slammed shut the Strait of Hormuz in response, blocking 20% of global seaborne oil and 25% of the world's LNG in one of the most aggressive acts of economic warfare in modern history. The MOU committed both sides to an immediate halt in military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, reopening of the Strait, and a 60-day window to finalize a permanent agreement. Oil markets believed it. Brent crude fell more than 4.5% to $80 per barrel, its lowest level since before the war began. Traffic hit a 2-month high with 25 transits on the first full day of commercial reopening, predominantly Chinese-affiliated tonnage. The International Maritime Organization launched an emergency evacuation framework with Oman to extract the 11,000 stranded seafarers and hundreds of commercial vessels trapped in the Persian Gulf for 4 months. By June 24th, confirmed Strait of Hormuz crossings had jumped to 70 in a single day, up 105% day on day, as demining efforts advanced and operators increasingly used the Omani southern route. Recovery looked real, then came 0837. The Ever Lovely was not violating the MOU. It was not running an unauthorized lane. It was transiting the southern corridor along the Omani coastline, the exact corridor approved by the UN, coordinated with Iran's civilian government in Tehran, and guaranteed safe passage by the Sultanate of Oman. The Oman Maritime Security Center had published that southern corridor specifically as the mine-clear preferred route, in coordination with the IMO and the Joint Maritime Information Center. The IRGC didn't just fire on a ship. The IRGC fired on a UN-sanctioned evacuation route, while Iran's own foreign ministry told state media that shipping was operating normally. Two Iranian voices, two contradictory realities. one drone strike. This is the cold flip, the reversal that changes everything you thought you understood about this conflict. You have been watching a war between the United States and Iran. What you are actually watching is a war inside Iran between President Pezeshkian's government, which signed the deal and wants sanctions relief and reconstruction funding, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which answers to the remnants of the supreme leadership apparatus and has never accepted the premise that Iran should negotiate from a position of weakness. The IRGC's Persian Gulf Strait Authority issued a statement within the hour of the strike. Any passage through routes outside their designated framework would not be covered by safe passage guarantees, and consequences would fall on the vessel owner, operator, and commander. Translation: the MOU doesn't apply to us. We control the corridor, and we are prepared to prove it with missiles. This was not an accident. This was a power play internal to Iran, but with consequences stretching from the Persian Gulf to the U.S. Senate floor, where just days earlier, 4 Republican senators joined Democrats in passing a war powers resolution demanding Trump remove American forces from the conflict. By 0900 hours, UK MTO had issued warning 074-26. The operational picture inside 5th Fleet's Combat Information Center was deteriorating. Windward Maritime Intelligence reported that the IRGCN broadcast a VHF Channel 16, warning to all vessels, transit without AIS or IRGC permission would be at their own risk. The IRGC published a claim on its official Telegram channel that 3 tankers transiting the southern corridor had been ordered to turn back. Windward identified 5 vessels exhibiting behavior consistent with that claim, with a 6th losing AIS signal during the incident. One IRGC fastboat crew transmitted directly to a tanker on maritime radio, "You are in range of my missiles, and maybe I fire on you?" That is not saber rattling. That is weapons pre-authorization spoken over an open international distress frequency. The mine threat layer remained the most dangerous variable. U.S. Navy explosive ordnance disposal teams had been working the Strait since April 11th, clearing Iranian Manta pattern contact mines and Iranian-laid bottom influence mines seeded across the main shipping channel. But the Strait is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, with dual 1-mile shipping lanes separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. And as of June 25th, less than 40% of confirmed mine locations had been neutralized. The southern Omani corridor was supposed to be the clean alternative. The ever-lovely was using it. The IRGC just fired into it anyway. Simultaneously, commercial satellite imagery showed 2 Mauj-class Iranian frigates repositioning northward from Bandar Abbas, and a 3rd vessel tentatively identified as an Alvan-class frigate had gone dark on AIS near the Larak Island choke point. CENTCOM's E-2D Hawkeye, operating from the USS Gerald R. Ford, repositioned to the North Arabian Sea following the ceasefire, was tracking 17 active IRGC drone signatures in the Strait's approach vectors, all flying below 200 feet AGL to reduce radar cross-section against surface ship Spy-1D arrays. The entire threat matrix, mines, drones, gunboats, shore-based anti-ship systems, was live, simultaneously. That is not an accident. That is a prepared defensive posture, activated on command. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Gravely, operating as lead escort for the IMO evacuation corridor, went to general quarters at 0842 hours, 5 minutes after impact. Her AN/SPY-1D radar was already tracking the IRGC fast boat network at 47 nautical miles. The Mark 45 5-inch gun was hot. CEC data link to the E-2D Hawkeye was active. SM-2 Block 3. B missiles were in standby load position in the forward VLS cells. USS Mason, a second Burke-class destroyer, positioned at the Strait's eastern mouth, activated her AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite and began broadcasting active jamming on the frequency bands associated with IRGC short-range anti-ship missile guidance systems, specifically the C-802 Norse Seeker frequencies that had disabled 2 Gulf Arab tankers back in March. But the response protocol was not escalation. It was deliberate, surgical containment. CENTCOM's guidance was clear. Demonstrate reach, suppress the IRGC's fire control picture, and give Pezeshkian's government time to reassert visible control, or at minimum, to publicly disavow the strike before the situation became irreversible. That calculation rested on one assumption: that Pezeshkian's government could override the IRGC. No confirmed evidence exists that it can. Secretary of State Rubio was in Bahrain at the exact moment the ever-lovely took the hit. He was in a room full of Gulf foreign ministers. He had just told them, "We are going to be completely aligned with our partners in the Gulf and engage them on every decision made with regard to this negotiation." That statement aged badly in under an hour. The IMO Secretary General Arsenio Dominguez suspended the evacuation framework at 0930, stating he was pausing to reconfirm that safety guarantees remain in place for all ships on the evacuation list. 11,000 seafarers remained stranded. Hapag-Lloyd, one of the world's largest shipping companies, confirmed it had managed to get all its vessels safely out of the Gulf. But most shipping owners were still erring on the side of caution, meaning movement through the Strait was more trickle than rush. In Washington, the Senate War Powers vote had already changed the diplomatic calculus. Iran's negotiating team in Geneva read it as political exhaustion. The IRGC read it as a green light. In London, Lloyd's of London reversed the war risk premium reductions it had only just applied to Gulf transits. Brent crude jumped 2.8% within 90 minutes of the attack going public, rekindling concerns among analysts about how long it could take for Gulf oil flows to resume to normal levels. The MOU, signed at Versailles with the world watching, was hanging by a thread. Not because Washington violated it, not because Tehran's diplomatic apparatus violated it, but because an armed entity that answers to neither had fired a drone into a UN evacuation corridor in broad daylight and told the world that the Strait of Hormuz remains and will remain under their management. Tonight, hundreds of ships are still at anchor. The mines are still in the water. The IRGC fast boats are still running dark in the Strait's lower shipping lane. Two of the most capable naval forces on Earth are holding position 40 nautical miles apart, waiting for a signal from governments that may not control the forces that already pulled the trigger. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. 20% of the world's oil passes through it. For 4 months, a single military organization within one country has used it as a hostage, and today, 8 days after the deal that was supposed to end all of this, that same organization fired a drone into a UN convoy and walked away. The real question is not whether the U.S. can defeat Iran in a direct military exchange. The Fifth Fleet answered that question in March. The real question is whether any agreement signed by a civilian government in Tehran means anything when the IRGC operates on a separate chain of command, one that answers to hardliners who believe concession is defeat and that closing the strait is the only leverage Iran has left. So here is what you need to decide. If you are in the National Security Council tonight, with the IRGC still broadcasting live warnings on Channel 16, mine still uncleared in the Central Shipping Lane, and the MOU now publicly in question. Do you hold the line and let diplomacy breathe for another 72 hours? Or do you put the Gravely through that corridor with full weapons-free authorization and force the issue? Drop your answer in the comments, because the officers in that CIC are asking the exact same question right now. Stay sharp, stay informed, and remember, in the Strait of Hormuz, every nautical mile is politics, and every drone is a message.